Yes. Yeah, let's pick up. So just what I want to say is I did establish like a cutting plane. I just picked the midpoint, but you could have picked, if this was really long, definitely take your section usually closer to the thing that I'm trying to expose. So there is no right or wrong distance away here, but just generally I'll take my section within a close proximity to why I'm even sectioning, right? So if this thing was 10 foot through here, I wouldn't take my section clear back over here. I'd probably push it closer to my actual some features that I'm trying to expose with my section. So um, and this is one potential way to do this, but someone else could come through, drafter's choice could say, well, I'm not going to do it. I don't really need the sectioning. It could be argued that I would need it, but because there are some things that I might be able to the through bore here. I definitely I think I'll be able to dimension in the section because it'll expose it, although it'll be in its round view, and I kind of already have that here, so it doesn't really help me with like if I'm analyzing why I'm taking my section. It's really not to expose this, although it will expose it, but it'll expose, the outer diameter and the inner diameter of this through bore here. And and it's dimensionable, but it'll just be like it'll almost be like it looks right here anyway. Maybe it'll be a little clear that this is the counter bore with its detail work, and then I will have another place to additionally apply a dimension that's the inner bore diameter. It won't be in its rectangular view though, so it's not like giving me like great there, but it gives me something to dimension. But really, it's going to expose mostly like this plate without it being chopped and hidden here. I'll be able to see the plate with this cylindrical feature kind of on top of it coming out at me, but I'll be able to see that plate and define its details better with dimensions. But someone could say, well, instead of doing a cutting plane because it doesn't give me a lot of great detail to section this, I might just put this and use the same method. I actually, instead of being a cutting plane, we'd call it a viewing plane, and I would just place it out here away from any dimensioning, and I'd probably point those arrows back this other way. So just if I mirrored this on the other side of this, it could become a viewing plane, and they look the same. Essentially, they have their arrows and they have the same kind of line type. I just call it a viewing plane rather than a cutting plane, and it just shows me that maybe I'd just be looking at it like I would take this view and then look at the right side of it. Essentially, is what I'm saying is now that I've got a front and a right side view. Well, now I'm going to do what's really the back. It would become the back view in the sequence. So that would be okay too. That would expose the plate and it would have all of its like visible line features, and that would be fine. So I could really just take a front, a right side, and a back view and call it good. And I'd have the three views. So whether I do that or do this section, I think it's debatable. If there's value added in the sectioning versus just the viewing plane. And really, I probably wouldn't even have to do the viewing plane now that I think about it, because if it's just a back view, I just keep them in orthographic alignment. And I say that's front, that's back. Maybe it's helpful to title my views when I do that, but and it might be helpful if I don't title my views to actually put the viewing plane arrows in and then call it viewing plane and title that view. Yeah, anyway, thoughts that I have that there's multiple ways to get to the finish line here. I'm just going to establish my cutting plane that I've done and leave it like that. And but there are options here. So moral of the story is everything I draw has kind of some options, and someone might draw it a little bit different. But I'm going to now. How much am I going to project over? Well, I don't know. Is it helpful to project, or really is the view pretty simple? I might. That's a pretty busy view coming across my plate. So I think this is a good candidate for just creating a new construction layer is what I'm going to do. So I think I'm just going to copy this thing and call it my section or my construction layer two so I can turn off that other one because that one's pretty busy. I think I'll use this one. And really, I'm just projecting stuff from this view over now. So, and I could just draw a circle, but I'm just going to make sure if I draw my circle that it's in orthographic alignment here, out some far distance. I don't know. I'll just pull this 8 inches over and I'll repeat that here. So this is the diameter that's 3 1/4 diameter. And so really, I might pull a center line over too. And then this plate would look like, I'll just go to my visible layer and draw this. I'll draw a radius one. Maybe here, is that gonna be big enough? Yeah, it's probably far enough away to dimension it, probably. I just pulled the mid, I pulled those over 8 inches, and then they have a midpoint on them that's 4 inches away. So this will just work for me, I think. And that's going to be the same diameter. That's what that plate would look like if I looked, uh, if I viewed it from left to right. It's going to look like that. And it's going to have its hole pattern, which I can choose to do, or I can draw in. It's definitely going to need a center line hole pattern. That same bolt circle pattern is what I kind of need. And it had a bolt circle pattern that was, I think, 2 1/4. Does that sound right? 2 1/4, 1 1/8, maybe. I'll double check that. I got 1.125 as my guess, but let me just make sure that's right. Yeah, this is a 2 1/4 bolt circle. So I did a radius circle that's 1 1/8. That's half of that. And then like yeah, just like Sky mentioned in the first time I did this, I can do a center mark on this that shows the intersection point. I can customize that to be ASME standard center mark. And that gives me a place to do the next circle as well for the. So I could project those over, but I think I'm just going to draw them now that I have everything that I need with them right there. They're 1/2 inch holes here, so that's a 1/4 inch radius, 0.25 or 0.5 for the diameter. And then I'll pattern that thing around in a polar array from this center and with 4 as the pattern, full 360, that'll make them 90. That's totally how that would look if I was looking down on it. So I'm happy with that. I could project over. The only other thing I'd probably project is, but I don't necessarily need it, is the inner bore and the outer bore of this, right? Like I could just draw them as circles though too. And there's no reason why I'm drawing these out any particular length. I don't have to, but essentially I'm going to need to know this, but it's going to look like a circle in my view here. It'll be the round. Yeah. And it will have the inner bore and the outer bore. So it kind of look. So these are nice to know that I'm in alignment. I don't necessarily have to draw them on this way, but that'll kind of help me keep in alignment. Gives me something to pull like a simple circle to like this, as long as it's the right size. Is that this should be 1.25 or 0.625 radius. That sounds correct. That should be the outer diameter, what we call the OD of this particular cylindrical feature here. And the ID, or the inside diameter, um, that's how we abbreviate that stuff on our prints too. OD and ID become like inside and outside diameters. So that gets put on a local note a lot. We haven't done it yet. Um, but I need to draw the inner diameter here as well, right? And that should be the 0.75 diameter that was through. Like it was really called out in the counterbore that it went through. Maybe it should have said through all would have been helpful, whether it's just through that plate. So I can argue a little bit from a drafter standpoint. Through could be interpreted as through one plate. Through all is even more descriptive, and that means through everything, all through all plates. So I could argue that this should maybe say through all. The way I've drawn it is through all. Through could be misinterpreted in this case, just so you know. Like somebody might interpret that as only through one plate. Unless it says through all, I'm not going through other, separate pieces potentially. So just as a note, maybe that's a little unclear. That'd be, this is like engineering scented drafting. I'd be like, hey, is that through all or just through the first plate? That would be a good question to ask someone back for clarification, because I've drawn it through all, and that could be wrong. And then this would have some sectioning now here. So what I've done is I've cut through this. Let them eat cake. I like you guys say that sometimes. Yeah, I've cut through this like cake. So what I would have is I would be obviously in this area, I'm cutting through nothing. And then I start cutting through something right here. And then I'm back in the inner bore, since that's a through all hole, as the way I've drawn it. I'm actually cutting through nothing in this area at all. There's nothing here. It's just a through hole space. And then I actually cut through back through some material right here. And then I'm cutting through nothing again right here. So really the only thing that gets sectioned is what I'd call like a wall thickness. And that's maybe, I view this as more of a pipe feature that has an inner bore and an outer bore, ID and OD, and then the space in between those where the material actually is maybe a wall thickness, we'd call that. Rectangular parts have that, square parts, they have like a thickness, materials do associated with them, and we might call that wall thickness, how thick it is. And so I'm gonna add that sectioning, hatching through this area here. So I'll just turn off my construction layer for a second and go to my section layer. I have sectioning layer, and the hatching is on our draw command here. There's the hatching. I have different hatches. I'm just going to do a standard hatch here, not a gradient or a boundary, but just do my normal hatch. I'm going to do ANSI 31. That's that general purpose. If I don't know the materials, this is what I'll use. If I know it's cast iron, I'll also use it. If I know the materials, I'll try to pick one out from the drop-down list, that is preloaded into CAD here. But I'm going to go with ANSI 35. Oh, wait, 31. And I want this to be hatched here. So I could turn off my section layer if I want to do like a single hatch, and maybe I do. Maybe there's a good argument that I'd say, well, I don't want to like do it in four pieces. Maybe I want to do my hatch, as a nice consistent hatch like this. I just want to make it annotative, right? I want the hatching spacing to auto adjust by my whatever scale my drawing is on my paper. So I'm going to make that annotative, and then apply that hatch, not that one. And I'm going to say enter that. So there's my hatch, is kind of a single input hatch. And to get back into it, you just select it. Just a single click will get back in. What does it do if I double click it? I don't know. Maybe it just goes in. Oh, it brings up the quick properties of it. So there's my hatch on the right layer. That's what that would look like. That's what it's cut through. That's the only material it's actually cut through. So it's really exposed my plate pretty well for dimensioning purposes. So I feel like at this point, if I'm not sitting there, I'm not showing any hidden work. There really isn't any hidden work on this potentially. And yeah, I think I'm ready to detail this out. So I'm ready to go over to my sheet, maybe build some viewports that have these like independent of each other, maybe just based off. I like the one-to-one scale. This seems like a pretty good size. It's just that I won't be able to fit it in this particular orientation, and I'm becoming increasingly less happy with these viewports with the grips. So I've been deleting mine for the most part and adding new layouts. It's also good practice to remember where your viewports are on your layout tab when you're in paper space. The more you do that, the more you remember where it is, so you don't forget how to build yourself some viewports. I'm gonna have a front viewport, let's say here. Oh, I always do this, so I put it on the wrong layer, right? Like, story of my life when it comes to a viewport is I never pick the viewport layer layout. Now I did. I'll have a front view. I'm gonna repeat that. I'm gonna have a right side view, and then I'm gonna have a section view. And obviously, I'm off the sheet. That's okay. Fix this one as my front view viewport. Maybe it's 1-to-1. I don't think I need to be bigger than 1-to-1. I think that'll work. I'll just kind of center that. Maybe a little further over this way. I like that. I'll lock it for the moment. I'll size this a little bit. Don't get too crazy because I don't even know what my dimensions are, so I'm not going to spend tons of time. This is going to be my right side view at 1-to-1, more or less centered. Lock it down, exit it for a minute. Maybe I'll move it slightly. I'm going to move it in alignment here in just a second, but I'm just getting that at least there, and then get into this one and get in on that section view. And it doesn't look too bad. It's just that off the page, though, is it. So this can tuck in, I hope. I probably won't dimension too much taller than that. I don't know how much room I need here, but I think I'm going to slide this one over even just a little bit more. Somewhere around here. Probably do most of my dimensioning to the right side of it anyway, and above it potentially. So I don't know. I probably need a little more room on my left side than that, but just first trying to get them all at least fit here roughly. So I'm not hanging off the sheet like that. Cool. And then I do need, um, I'll probably just make one more layer here because I always like to keep these layers separate. So I always do like one more layer because it doesn't matter how many layers I have for a lot of things. I like these on a separate layer myself. So all I really need, I'm not doing any like a kind of Y relationship alignment. It's just pretty much in the X direction. So what I need is just a turn it on, please. I need a line that just is kind of just functions as like an X line like this. Maybe I could have moved it slightly further above. So I'll do that. I just do a move command. Roughly there. Technically, I could move this because when I based my view there, I pretty much based it off of that. But yeah, something like this. Now this is a place to line up everything that would be in alignment. So really the bottom of the plate is maybe what I'm going to use as my alignment. Those should all be along the same. So I'm going to move their viewports, right? I move this viewport, right click it, and then I can pick any grips that it has. There's the quadrant. I'm going to bring it down to that line, this line here. Beautiful. That's on plane now. We'll do another move by this. I'm just picking the same feature on each one, bringing it down to that line. So the the X and the back plate are the same overall diameter. And then I'll do one more move. What I really wish there was a place to just lock my viewport there, but so I don't bump it. And then I might slide these closer or further from each other. They don't have to be like perfectly spaced, but I'll do my dimensioning and I'll decide, oh, how does this look? And I feel like they get a little bit busy with the grids in there, so maybe I'll just turn off their grids. Yeah, this is heading the right direction to detail now. Obviously, I have line type scale issues. They're pretty coarse center lines and pretty coarse hidden lines actually. So I'm going to make those a lot finer at the very end. I'll just start dimensioning. So break this down piece by piece. Yeah. I think so. A little bit of time. Whether I finish this or not, I don't know, but I'll finish it out on the video and post it up as part two. So I'll just keep going until I'm done. I'm definitely going to look at overalls, but I think I'm going to break this down as kind of like I view this as almost three different parts, like I said before. So I'll kind of break down the overall size of each part, maybe. I mean, I'll look at the overall first, of the whole thing overall, and make sure I capture that. So I'm going to go to my dimension layer now, or my dimensioning, and I'm going to say the overall height is kind of a diameter, but it's kind of a linear length as well. And I feel like I will be adding more center marks on this as well. So I don't know. I'm gonna jump in here to the viewport. Well, I'll pick a viewport here. Make sure I'm in a viewport to jump into it. Okay. Now I can go to town dimensioning here, but I guess I'll start with my front view and just start breaking this down. So the overall, mm, I think the overall height is best shown here, really. It's kind of it's in the rectangular view. Um, so it wouldn't help. I feel like it's more clear that this is going to be an overall height in this view potentially. Um, If I pull this other one, I'm definitely going to put a diameter associated with it because it is kind of like off that round plate. If I pull this one, it's less like a diameter and more like a linear dimension. So I feel like I don't have to put a diameter on this one, but if I did pull it off this side, I would. Just remember, watch your diameters when you're actually pulling off something that's round. Add a diameter to even the linear measurement. I think I'll leave this as my overall height, though. And then my overall width. Um, you I can pull it like I feel like I have a few options here, but I might pull it here. And I may or may not keep this. I don't know. And whether or not I keep it there or I would pull this back. Technically, I'm going across some material that's actually at the same. This quadrant would be, and I don't know if I'm going to keep this, but I know that it's at least the dimension that I want to know is kind of an overall width, an overall height, and then an overall depth. Obviously, the only place it's going to show my overall depth is going to be, sorry, I should have moved off that. Is going to be in the right side view. This one, right? This has got my depth overall 2.7. So those are definitely going to be that captures my three dimensionals, my yeah overalls. Now I can start to break down each features of the part. Maybe just I kind of focus on the outside. I always feel like I focus on outside profiles, then I focus on the specific uh, features and their size or features of size. We might call it in GD&T land of there's features of size on this X place part, but really I focus on its outer profile first before I deal with any holes. And I think systematically, so I try not to miss dimensions, but Um, so if I'm looking at the X plate, which is shown best in the front view, I've kind of got its overall width. Its overall height is kind of taken care of here. They're not I would say they're not great, like they're more reference dimensions than they are like great control points. If you can tell this part is kind of difficult to say where is the control of this going to be established because of the radius, the weird tangent radius features of the outer profile of the X plate, it gets hard to maybe establish what the best datums are going to be for this or their controls. Um, I think for sure it's going to be like center driven on this, just because of all the weird shaping of it. I'm probably gonna place my controls on the center lines. So in the front view, I have this center line, vertical and horizontal center lines, right? My center mark that I place. So I feel like those are going to be the probably the control for this X because it's those are our best controls on a weird shape part like this is center. What I like about this part as well is that it shows you that when you have something that's like this, and let's say this was 10 inches long, or let's say it was a foot long, and I've got a through bore going through it. And so this is why dimensioning alone in some on some features is not enough because I'm going to dimension this. I'm going to say what the diameters are. I might say what this whole diameter is, and great. That's all great and dandy, yes. And I'm going to base it off of maybe a control, like a center mark or a center line. But when you have something like this really illustrates that there might be a necessary form control over this in order to keep this thing like totally straight down through the bore that maybe has some substantial depth to it. That's where GD&T land comes to save us and says, actually, I can control this how cylindrical the bore is of this, or on the outside or the inside, or whatever is going to be best. Um, I can place something. I can place some like essentially it becomes hieroglyphics in the future, some symbology that is telling the person that's going to make this that hey, not only I'm pulling like my dimensions off of a center, and then I need you to control how true and straight that center is. Because if I'm basing dimensions from it, I may have to place additional like form control to make sure that it's not like it doesn't vary an eighth of an inch from one end to the other. That I've got to tell someone to keep that true because I'm going to base dimensions off of each side of it. And if it becomes even though I've dimensioned it on one side, if you don't control the form through it, it's going to be inaccurate on the other end, right? So I like that this part kind of, if you can understand that the depth of this part makes it additionally like maybe complicated, and it shows that not only dimensions aren't enough alone to control a part. Sometimes we have to control its form and how straight and how flat and how cylindrical it is. In order to base dimensions from that is what I'm saying here. So the control for me on this is going to be center marks and center lines or center throughs. It's going to be the best place to establish control. And then the only thing I might need to do in the future is establish how true that axis of this cylinder is. I need to tell someone, keep that thing straight. And it has to fit within this envelope, or otherwise it's not going to be straight. And my dimensions are not going to be right. So anyway, that's I'm always steering you towards GD&T land as much as I can proactively and lessen how confusing it is in the future. But that's what I'm doing here. Your dimensions don't always control a part sufficiently. But I do like this crosshair that I'm going to work off of. So let's think about, okay, well, I've got some overall diameters, but they're not based off of like left to right, right to left, to and from. There's nothing's better than the other. But if I say, hey, it's from center out this way and center out that way, that might be a good place to base some of the outer profile. So let's first think size, then I'll think location. So size definitely are the radiuses of this. So let's do that. Let's come in here and say I've got radiuses on the outer profile here. So let's just pick a place to drop those on. This is where they show up the best. So here's a radius. It's 0.63, and I'll drop that on here. And then I will say, how many of those are there? Well, there's four of those. So I think I can call this out once and say it's four times those for sure. This is size. This is not location, but size. Be careful of this too. I'll reference my sheet and say, did they give me any? Are they just calling it 0.63? Are they calling it three decimal places, or what are they calling it? So let me come back here and check. Yeah, actually, this they are controlling to three decimal places. So me, do not round this. I've corrected a few people where that was we've come across this on the Geneva Cam or maybe something else maybe that it was the bracket design. That's what it was. Do not, and I'll repeat it here, something that I've already heard, which is do not round off. If an engineer gave you these dimensions, go with them. Don't let yourself do rounding here. That's a three decimal place dimension. I'm gonna maintain that accuracy. So here's my spot check. And I do this when I could do this at the end and just take a quick look, but sometimes if I have 100 dimensions to go through, I can miss one. So sometimes it's better to do it as you go. This is a three decimal place accuracy. I'm holding it to two. That's because that's what my dimension style is. But to change that, it's a single selection, single left click, and then right click to open up a pretty expansive menu here that I can just spot change the precision. You could do it on your properties panel. I just tend to use it from this little quick access menu here, and I'm going to push that to three decimal places. Now I'm not like decreasing the accuracy of this part unknowingly, right? I'm paying attention to what dimensions I was supplied with and maintaining that same accuracy. So that's four times of those. Then I have the inner one as well, and maybe I'll just try to bundle and save here, kind of close. Whether or not this becomes over overdone or not. Hey, and let's do another, maybe I'll do it on the side here. It might. Let's do this jog dimension. Maybe I practiced with it the other day. I don't use it a lot, so I always am kind of clumsy with it. But select the arc or circle. So I'm on the jog dimension here to try it again here a little bit. And it could be true that I might want where the center of that is as a as an actually outer center line here. So I feel like there's if I'm this radius, that's its location though. Let me just keep worrying about its size. So and maybe I should have worried about this location now instead of moving on to the next feature because I'm still really on this one and I've sized it. Maybe now I'll locate this. So what are my dimensions I have to locate? Usually they're an X and Y dimension to locate it, maybe. Or a circle pattern. Sorry, I'm looking at this feature, not that circle, this feature. Or that circle pattern. I could use kind of the bolt circle idea concept and tell everyone what this what the circle pattern is for this hole. I think that's what I'll do for a location. I'll first put in another piece of geometry, a center circle based off the same center point. That axis is going to be like a really good control for this thing. But I'm gonna snap this circle, and the reason why is because really it's going to control location for this and for this as well. And so I have that as kind of a distance out, and it would have a dimension associated with it, right? Like a diameter dimension on a bolt circle. It's really not a bolt circle because it's actually, well, it kind of is. It functions as both. It's got dual duty here. So it's this diameter, though, 2.83. I'm not sure if I was given that before. So if I wasn't given it, I'll just let it be the two decimal place accuracy. I don't think this was really established on a bolt circle. No. Oh, I knew what I was doing. Okay. I'm starting to remember that I like this. I like this assignment for a couple reasons because I can dimension this. I'm kind of doing like a polar. I'm kind of doing like a polar what do we call this? Like polar dimensions? Yeah. Polar dimensions? Yeah, I think so. Is that what I call this? where I establish like the circle that it's based off of in kind of a polar, like we do a polar array or a polar dimensioning style, then I'm going to dimension like these off of like this polar diameter that I've established. I might need to establish like how far off of how many degrees off that is. That would be the other component of this, even for this one radius feature. Yes, I've got a diameter about its location from center. That's one kind of location. The other thing it would really need is like another center line. I know this gets complicated and I over-explain it, but let me keep going. Through center, through even quadrant here, right? Through center, through quadrant. I could pull this like center line out here. Maybe I want to go to center first and then maybe extend it and not try to pull it out of alignment, but extend it by, I don't know how far, at least out to there. And then from here, maybe I need to go like 0.25. This is going to be one to base a dimension off of. Maybe I'm going to crowd this and I'm going to have to move this, but the dimension I need now is for locating this radius only. I've got size. I've got kind of another location here. It's that far out from center axis. So the other size I need or location I would need is like the angular measurement from this that I'm going to call a control to this. I know I'm a mess, but I'll clean them up here. I just know that I need this, potentially need this dimension. And there's four of these, 4x at 45 degrees. 4x at 45 degrees, or then do I do, that is 45 degrees. And then I might do this just one, back myself up. Because what I'm thinking is that is 45 degrees, yes, from this center. And then what I actually have going on is a need for one more angular dimension, which is going to be from here to the next one. So what I'm doing is I'm establishing like a from here to there, this being control, vertical center line, from and to my feature that I'm actually looking to locate. That's it. And then if there's four of them, I'm going to say from here now to there 4 times at 90 degrees. And that's going to get me back to where I started from. But I need this first one to get me off of like a nice some geometry that exists, which is really isn't geometry. It's actually just like a center line, which is a good control. So I feel like in order to do this polar locating, I'm going to say now it's going to go from here to another one that I don't have drawn yet. So I'll jump back over here to a line, draw this through like I did the other one. I just want to make sure I hit centers. And then maybe I'll pull this grip. When I pull this, I'm trying not to pull it off. And so I type in some number like 0.75 or something. That way it stays in alignment. Maybe I'll pull it back to here, but 0.25 beyond. And then I can establish this other dimension from here to here, 90 degrees. And at some point, I don't know, I'll decide the spacing. This becomes the 4 times now, the four of these, 4x, 90 degrees. It's really critical that I control here, and then I can go ahead and take this pattern around. Once I've done 45 degrees once, I can go 94 times. That'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, back to where I started. That's great. There's other ways I could do this. So that is kind of locating. It's going to come in handy. Like these are going to be some of the same locating dimensions for the center, for the little hole. So it's probably going to do double duty on that a lot. Even the bolt circle is going to do double duty on that. But that is called like polar dimensioning or polar corp. Yeah. I feel like I'm tripping up on that word, and it's probably from chapter, I don't know. It's going to make me want to look in my book where I'm. Because what I'm going to do is show you the other method while we're into a part that has both potential. And then probably what I'm going to do is erase everything I just did, and you're going to be like, why? And I'm going to be like, well, you could leave yours like this. That's okay. I want to just show the other one while I'm I think it was chapter 10. Dimensioning and tolerancing, probably chapter 10. It's because I like this. It's actually chapter 10, yeah, page 305. And it is locating holes. So you have what is called polar coordinate location. It's just polar coordinate locating is what I just did there. I'm kind of basing off an axis or a center. I'm basing off a center mark and a kind of a center through axis. And I'm establishing and I'm establishing my dimensions. This is page 305, and it's actually figure 1060, 10.62. And this is great. This is probably the way I prefer to do a lot of like this kind of dimensioning is I think of uh polar coordinate location dimensioning is kind of my go-to on this. But also ASME will allow you to do rectangular coordinate locating dimensions. And so I could rectangularly coordinate or locate these holes and radiuses. So let me show you on this side of the plate what that looks like because I can do both here. And there might be an argument that somebody would say, well, the X plate I would do rectangular coordinates. This plate over here I would do polar locating coordinates, kind of like we just did. I'm probably going to locate these the same way I just did over here. But there is an argument that this X plate is maybe a little bit more in the rectangular category. So what it would look like, I'll say I'm going to ignore what I did on the left side of this. I'm going to focus on rectangular coordinates on the right side. So what that would look like is I would still like it if I'm just thinking of this feature and I'm kind of thinking that it is concentric to this feature. So these are going to also do double duty for these both of these features really. I would still need the size, so I'm going to pretend like I don't even have that size. I would definitely need the radius called out. That's a critical dimension. You got to have the radius. It's got to be to the same decimal place that we understood that this is this one. And then there would be four of them, yes. So I know I'm gonna slow this down just to explain it, but it's the last thing I'll do before this is over. And you can leave anytime you need to, it'll be on my recording. But so I've got the size. Now think of the location of it in a rectangular fashion would be like this. I would go to my annotate tab with linear dimensions, and I'm just thinking of X and Y coordinates. So I'm thinking like immediately I might apply a center mark to this or a center mark to this. So in this case, I would probably have, I'm going to get a little bit of overlapping stuff, but I would probably have a center mark already maybe had drawn on here a center mark. And maybe I would have drawn the outer radius one actually, like I maybe would have used this one to show that they're concentric, those two features. And then I might have done this one as well. So I would have these two center marks. I should make myself another center layer. Ooh, I'm going to do that just so I can explain it so I don't get so cluttered here. Bear with me just another second here. Center. Let's make a copy of this thing. Call it center two. You don't have to do this. I just want to show you. This is center two layer, I'll call it. And then I'm just going to be able to turn off. I'm going to move over to center two and turn off center one. So all my other center lines go away. And maybe I'll just delete these for a minute. I could put them to a dimension too, but I can snap them on there good. So now I'm pretending like I never had that, but I'm doing rectangular coordinate dimensions on center two layer. So it would have probably had, let me turn that on for just a second. So the work that I did do, I want to push to center layer two. And I would have had this one as well. So I'm just going to, for a minute, put these on my center two layer to display this a little less confusing. Turn off layer one. Okay. I would have started in a fashion like this, right? I had this main center mark, which is really still my control. Now I'm going to establish, okay, a rectangular locating for these features here. I've got them sized, so the location is just going to be X and Y. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a dimension or two here. For sure, they're like this far apart. Like this could be a pretty good candidate for like we always usually like to know, even though I don't put them on all my prints because but we generally you're always going to have when you have hole to hole, you'll like to know the center to center location of holes. So that's maybe one dimension, but that's really based off from hole to hole. It doesn't come from a control necessarily, right? Like that's why I sometimes leave it off on my dimensions, unless I know what's being controlled and I know how critical the hole pattern is. Sometimes I've been omitting it on some of my drawings where I've dimensioned, but because this is really like this is a great dimension to know, but it's really based off of no control. Like it's just kind of floating out in space. Yeah, 2 inches, great. It's 2 inches from where, and that's where these ones come in. To base it off a center line. So really, I would want to know that this hole to hole is 1 inch off center. I'm probably going to pull that to about this object edge here. These I would probably pull through to each other. Like these center lines, I would want to start to infer that they are in alignment. And I would have these over here as the same way. So I can actually add a couple more center marks or copy these ones over. I don't know if I change these. I never change these. So I hate to make a copy of something that isn't correct anyway. And maybe I can quickly match those properties to this one. Yes, good. And then I'll just I'll mirror those over, I guess. I'll mirror this center mark and this center mark over this axis here. Say no. Okay. So if I come up kind of with this like real gritty square rectangular pattern, kind of how I drew them actually. And so I'd say it's 1 inch to that one, and then it's 2 inches. So I could leave these as just the only two dimensions. Like it's 1 inch, and then I go back two to that one, and I maintain the whole spacing. This would be the first dimension, like two and or from and two, and then from and two is how I could kind of read that dimension. Kind of a maze there. I could also put the one on here. It's not a it's not a double dimension here. If I actually put this one to here, it's definitely different features that I'm calling out here. I'll pull this back to the object edge as well. And this might be a better dimensioning. So I'm 1 inch off of both control, and this maybe would become a reference or even dropped. If I left it, I'd probably call it a reference dimension and put it in parentheses. Like like it's more critical that I'm an inch and an inch off this, and if this varies a little bit more than that, okay. Because we're talking about tolerances and variances here is what we're talking about. We can never be truly accurate. So the most accurate here would be one off of center both ways. So this is rectangular locating. So what I've done is kind of like located the center of this. It's 1 inch off of this center line here. And really, that's only in one direction. That's in the Y direction. So it needs located in the X direction as well. So what it makes you do here, and of course this dimension I would delete it because it's with that other. It makes you have to put those dimensions across this other way as well. For sure, this one, right? This one has to be located 1 inch from center. And then I would do the other thing. I would do the same dimension this way here, right? From here to here. And if I add the two, okay. If I don't, like this is pretty easy math. I could maybe eliminate the two. You know, I might argue that this is kind of is redundant. It's not a double dimension. It's just maybe redundancy that's obvious. If it's less obvious, leave it. And if one's a reference, that'll expose itself once we know the true nature of the part. But and what's really critical, I think I've repeated several times. We get a little misled because we never know what the criticality of the part is, and in real life, you generally will know that. The engineer will know that, and so really think we're usually based off of some real part association. You know, how it works with other parts is usually in our life, not just some random part that we don't know how it works. That's not normal. Or sometimes things are just not critical, and they're like, it doesn't really matter. So okay, I won't be so critical then. But yeah, one and one. So this is kind of located this part is sized and it's located in X and Y. It's 1 inch off center and 1 inch off center. That's the location of that. It's going to double function as the whole location as well. Um, by pulling the center lines through it, I don't have to dimension that over here. That would be double dimensioning if I started to put 1 inch over here and 1 inch over here. It's already over here. And I've pulled, as long as I pull my center lines together, technically I haven't here, like pull these through. I usually pull each, like I have it overlap quite a bit like this, but this allows me to not have to dimension both sides. So that's kind of critical to get those, to infer that the center lines are going to, so this center line grid pattern, that's really all the dimensioning it would need. And I've really located the outside feature. I argue that this one, to continue to do rectangular, I think that this one's going to be better as a polar. Otherwise, you're going to be like pulling like what we need is like where the center of this is, right? And to locate it in a rectangular fashion would be like, well, it's going to be from here to wherever this center mark is there. You know, it's 0.194, and that would be fine. Like this is locating this center mark here, which I can probably put. I may have to put a center mark there. Let me see what that would look like just real quick. Center mark. Center of this, there's a center mark. I think it actually placed it there. Weird, huh? So I feel like, yeah, that would actually work okay, really. I would locate it in the X direction and in the Y direction to that center mark. which I don't really have. It didn't really pop that in there like I would want. I'd almost have to do a potentially a vertical center mark there or not, or pull this to, I don't know. How would I dimension that or how would I feature that? That's a good question. But I will continue on picking away at this and wondering, that's in one direction. The other one would be for sure. I need this one. Yeah, for sure I need maybe from here. Actually, it's like neither one is like neither one is better or best. I think they're both best. They're both so it's both ASME will allow you to do either one. You can do rectangular locating or you can do polar chord or locating. So I just want to show both. The last thing I kind of need, I've already kind of moved on from this feature. I feel like I've sized and located it. Now I'm looking at this feature and I'm sizing and locating it. Technically, I haven't dropped the size yet, but I think I did on my other before I deleted it. But I would want the size. Oh yeah, and that's what I was going to show is that I think I've played with jogged a little bit more. Let's maybe I'll just come out here to this one where there's space. And then it wants to know the specify the center location override. I think that is specify center location override. I think this is just the center of my arc. And then it says specify dimension line location. So now it wants to know the dimension line location if I'm jogging this. And maybe it would be like this. Yeah. And then the jog location, I don't think it's going to matter, but it would slide this back and forth. So I've used a jog location here or a jog dimension, and it has like four grips with it. The center, the radius, where my text is, and then where I think this one is where like how the line kind of jogs around my text location. Technically, I'm keeping a pretty tight pattern to open up the dimension. And that might not be totally necessary. If I just did a radius one of the same idea here, maybe it's sufficient like this as well. The only thing I like about this is that it's based off the center line. Like your metric templates are already designed to be that way. The inch templates are not. So this is where I was debating in my life if I was going to drop. I don't think this thing will drop me a center mark though. I thought it would if I picked this radius as a center mark. Oh, it does drop it. Yeah, never mind. That's good too to have. I just don't need it to be so overextended. Maybe I just need it to be, I'm going to pull all the grips into the center for this particular center mark. And it's kind of messy. You could just do lines as well, but what I'm kind of establishing is just to show that this is on. And I chose this one. I could have chosen either of them here. What I like is they're kind of based off of this horizontal control center line this way. That radius is based off. So I would only choose one or the other, and maybe I like this other one better, like this. And then this thing needs to say 4 times because there's four of these. 4x. So that kind of changes where that looks best, maybe. I might pull it just a little bit further out. 4 times the radius of that coming in there. And then if this is probably where I put that, I might move these locating dimensions for that over to that side. Like I might want this one located from center out over here, actually. So I might get rid of this one, but I'm going to kind of bundle them over here on this side where I've actually taken that, which further makes this a mess, probably. Yeah, that's all right. Just keep. Where is it pulling from? Yeah, it's probably going to still be a mess here. That is pulling from center to center here. So I'm using this as the control, and I'm coming out 0.194 to the center here.
Do you think the problem you run into with polar or this rectangular or
Yeah,
Cartesian form?
yeah.
Like with the bolt circle on the polar form, you could take the precision to like 10 digits and it's still just a non-repeating decimal. And then with this one, the 194, I think is also not
Never
the
ends.
first side. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so like it's kind of a
it's
compromise either way.
yeah, and maybe my part only needs to be held to four decimal places, or there might be this might not be accurate enough for sure, but maybe four. If I go beyond 4 or 5, I'm
There's no machine that
then I'm in aerospace world and I'm sending stuff to Mars, which there are, I don't know how many decimal places they hold there, but maybe beyond 4 or 5, but they have the specialized tooling for that. Yeah, yeah. I just want to be careful doing that. Yeah, because you're right. At some point, I'm maybe rounding that off.
of that outside radius.
Hmm.
The 4 times one over on the right.
Yeah.
3 digits and maybe like
And then these ones are dumbed down.
then maybe take the other ones to three as well. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You would say, yeah, and then I would ask my engineer, hey, and that would be good. Yeah, that'd be a good conversation to have. This one here, yeah, they're tangent to tangent. Well, yes, I do think because I need to know where it's located off of like some type of control. Like I can't just think that it's like tangent to tangent. Yeah, I mean that is it. I think what you're saying is valid. I just want to say um and so you'd have to have a local note that says that's tangent to tangent and it's this diameter, right? Like the local note might be something that you would add a leader line for, point to that and say, if you've located this one, this next one is tangent to tangent. Yeah, that could be something. I would probably use dimensions though, rather than a note like that, as far as preference, I think. Yeah, yeah, that's it does say tangent to tangent, huh? Yeah. And I do view that those are notes from an engineer, and they're not necessarily to a specific like standard, right? You'll find that when you work with engineers, they may not know the standard as well as you do, or they definitely haven't taken a drafting class. That's why they still need drafters because they're doing calculations for you to figure out stuff. You're doing all their work as far as drawing, modeling, and detailing the drawings. And so there's going to be things that they don't know as well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's you knowing your trade and you're knowing that, hey, we need to locate this or this has to have a location. Yeah, that's good. Those are all good thoughts. I like all this feedback actually. Because it's just a matter of like you overthink the heck out of this stuff, really. You really do. And I've only located in one direction. Technically, my other location is on this axis here. I guess that's that far out. And then I would need to know maybe in this direction where I need to know anything. That's what I'm kind of thinking. I'm like thinking in my head, is there a dimension in this direction that I need to have for this? Or do I just actually, I don't think so. I just have this radius that comes out here, 1.94 along the control, and that's where the center of that is. And then I'm going to spin this radius here. I think that's all I need to know is the one locating dimension for that particular. And then maybe I've just got to like decide where this lived the best, something potentially like that, or maybe a little further over, just so I get off my little center mark there just a little bit. I Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do rectangular coordinates on this one, and then I'm going to go over here and do my polar coordinates here, and it's just me doing kind of both. So anyway, yeah, 1 and 1. If I put two, it's a reference. 1 and 1. If I put two, it's a reference. 194 is great. I only need that one dimension. And so that is size and location, I think, for that feature. I've already sized and located this. And I don't have to take, I can say 4 times on that for size. I can say, and then these dimensions are pulling through with center lines, so I'm happy there. And so I've really sized and located the outer features of this, I feel like. I'm ready to look at the whole. The whole just needs sized and located. So the location's already done with the same radius, so it's just a matter of sizing one of these holes in the X plate. And maybe I'll put it, where's a good place for it? I don't know. Somewhere that's kind of clear. Um, Anywhere actually. These are its locating things. That's that one. Maybe I'll put it in relationship to this. Will I? I don't know. If I move those, if I put that in there, those will come way out. If I do this, I'm double crossing that, but that's okay. I could do that. That's not bad. That's actually fairly clear. This one could move up just a little bit more. And there's four of these. Maybe I could call these out as eight, but I think I might separate those two plates, and that's drafter choice as well. I could call out eight, and then they're all applied to be eight. Maybe I'm going to do the four here because I'm thinking of just the X plate. Um, I think so. In my mind, it is because they're kind of separate plates, and so I kind of separate the features there. But I think you'd see people do it either way, as long as I've got those captured, and if they all are the same size. I feel like I'm going to add that their size over here though, just so it'll be more clear because their location will be over there, and so if their size, it's not really a. I don't feel like it's a double dimension either because it's a different. It's kind of a different part of this part. The X plate and the round plate are kind of two different parts, so I can kind of separate their sizing. Yeah, yeah. I don't feel like that's double dimensioning at all. So, and then its size and location is based off of those as well. So that this is doing double duty. Of course, I'm going to clean these up when I get to the end. Technically, if I've determined that these are now control here, the center, X and Y across the center, then I feel like this now should be based. I should have some reference to that for this. This is just an overall floating out in space, doing nothing from no real control. So the way I can kind of rein that in a little bit is to pull one more dimension out to its overall diameter here, and uh, and I pulled it up across there just because that's where that I feel like it's in relationship to I'm pulling to there. This and this are now, I feel like they're kind of talking together where I'm saying, oh, this is 0.163 over. And then I come back from that to this overall diameter. And maybe this still just becomes a reference dimension, but I feel like this is maybe the bigger control here for the overall size is adding that one dimension. So I'm 0.163 and 0.194 out. That's clearly that. Yeah, I feel like I'm ready to move on to the next feature of this, other than the through bore here, right? This is the place to call out the through bore. Technically, I could come over here and not pull much, honestly. And of course, I've got this and this kind of doing the same. Maybe this is considered a double dimension if I'm not careful here. I could leave this and drop this, I think, and keep this, I think. I think I'm going to do this combination. This is off of control. This is kind of off of control if my base is, but not necessarily. Anyway, so what I got to do is clean up. I got to turn on my other. I got to do a bunch of little cleanup work here, just based off how I was demonstrating what I was doing differently. But because I've got this stuff going on here, and I really only want one, probably center layer, everything on. So I'm going to move. I'm gonna eliminate this bolt circle that I didn't need in this view anymore. These were part of the polar type of dimensioning that I'm not using. And this one is the for the other side plate. It's arguable that I'm not really using it here, and I'm going to use it over there. I drew it original. Maybe I'll leave it for this time right now, but all of these I need to move over to my other center layer. Oh, it's painful. Just main center. This one here, I think I had a mark here that was all center too as well. Main center. Push it to. So now when I move over to center two and I turn off center two here, oh, I've got that one more on center. This one I want to be back to main center. Essentially, I'm deleting my layer that's called center two. I just used it for a quick demonstration purpose. I could have left it, but because I'm leaving this one as in my rectangular coordinate pattern. And I just need to do the counter bore stuff. So I'm gonna do that. So I'll start with the inner bore diameter, and I will probably call out through all on this actually, knowing that. So it's a diameter on the inner bore is kind of how I'd start this one. I don't know where this is going to pull originally. I think I'm probably going to pull maybe down here actually doesn't look too bad. Then I'll modify this dimension to say I don't really need to add any to that. I just need to add some descriptions. Through all. Next line down, I'm going to put the diameter of the counterbore, which I can't remember. Is it 0.125 is the counterbore and then 0.20 deep. So I'm going to add those and then I'll go get the symbols from the symbols library. So through all, did I say it's 0.125? I already forgot. I think so. That's it. And then it's 0.20 deep. Yeah. The symbol libraries here. Down on other, opens up the character map. Mine opens up where I had it last, but if not, just look for GDT and then counterbore. Select that. I just need that one first. Paste it in there. It always, I think it drops it to the next line every time. So put something like that. I never can remember if that should be deleted and spaced or just spaced in between. I think I've been spacing them in between. Maybe just for clarity's sakes more than I can't remember if what I did last time. Either that's probably okay. I can't remember if we spaced each side of that symbol. I'll look that up. I promise. At some point, we'll know if we've done it right. I'm gonna leave a space right now. And then the other symbol I need is I don't have to open that up again. I can always I remember that it's open all the time. I just want the next depth symbol. Control V to paste. Yes, delete. I think I'll still keep a space there. There it is. It's my counterbore local note. Maybe I like it there the best. Maybe it has less intersecting work. I do have some I have dimension cleanup to do in general, but I like focusing on them first and then come back and clean them up. If you like to clean them up, that's fine as you go. I just always find that I always have to modify stuff. This is about done though. I could probably clean this up and move on. Yeah, I don't see that I'm missing anything. Um, so I'll spend a little time cleaning up then. 3/8 of an inch away, 0.375. I'll line these ones up. This is a one-to-one drawing, so I'm not worried about the spacing being right. Watch yourself though. If it's not one-to-one, I might need to consider the scale to set the spacing right. Just beware. I haven't had to do that yet, but I think I will in the future have to. So that's that. This one I feel like I could space away a little better, like there. Wait, three some. That doesn't look like that interferes. That's all right. I already kind of left that one. These I just need to cut through, right? So I'm going to cut this one with this one. So I'm going to cut the first one that's going to get cut with the one that's doing the cutting like that. And that would be correct. Cut extension lines around dimension lines, and I consider this a dimension line. Yeah. There might be an argument that I want to like stack these up and make them easy to read. Maybe it's better if they stagger just a little bit, but no particular. And this one's breaking the rule just a little bit that it's, I don't know. I'm keeping them. That's fine. Let's do that. That's pretty well cleaned up. I think I'll leave those and then I'll go over here. If you did polar, they would just clean them up too with those angular dimensions, which I'll do over here. Maybe while I'm thinking about it, I will just detail this out. This one will be using my polar coordinates, and then I'll worry about the right side view But so here's some stuff I haven't been able to call out. I mean that's the counterbore and its features, so I think I feel like it won't be redundant to recall this out here. It's the only place where I really see I don't really get a rectangle. I could There could be an argument that the overall diameter was it's not the best to dimension right here for this. Let me focus on the outer plate though first. So I feel like here's the outer plate. Great. Um, I could throw the diameter here. That would be a good dimension. The better dimension is definitely coming off the rectangular view right here where it's pulled from. So I feel like I'm going to use a linear dimension for the diameter right here as the preferred dimension of this plate. And then I've got to add a diameter symbol in front of it. Yes, but I need a space there, so I'll get back in there. Eventually, I'll get back in there to add a space. Oh, I don't want to do that. Yeah. Oh, please let me in to give a space. That can be so annoying. Okay, good. Wait, I don't usually do a space there. What am I doing? Stop. Don't do a space. You should have stopped me like that. That's good. That might be a reason why I wouldn't have a space here, but I think the diameters don't have a space for sure. Okay. That's the diameter of this plate. That's great. What about its thickness? So that's one thing I haven't captured here though. If I go back to this plate, yes, we did great with all of its locating. When I was considering the outer profile and I was considering its like dimensions, which I've got here, maybe it should have caught my attention that this dimension was needed here. And that means I'm establishing this front face as probably another like plane, like another control surface essentially that I'm pulling that dimension from now and this dimension from there. So the argument could be that I would say, well, maybe I could put two dimensions here. This one here is a nice to know, and maybe is a more controlled. That one's on our print for sure, and that it doesn't mean it necessarily has to show up on my drawing, but this could become a really critical dimension. And I still don't feel like it's redundant to say, well, then I would also have, and then I can do the math and say that's that, and maybe this becomes a reference dimension. Sorry, I pulled that wrong, but this might be a good candidate where I would add this dimension. And it's the size of this that I'm thinking about. There's size, diameter, and kind of the depth here for the size of this. Yeah. And maybe in some future, the combination of these dimensions, ones becomes clearly referenced and others stay as critical. So, I mean, this one is kind of like, are we saying that we're establishing a new control here? Well, no, not necessarily. It could be that this is the control from the same datum, so that the point 0.5 is all pulling this point 0.5 point or 2.2 and 2.7 are all pulling from this control. Maybe this one's reference information at that point. We don't know, but so I'll leave all four of those there. And really, when I established these dimensions, it was me actually thinking of these thicknesses. I really wasn't thinking of the overall part, other than just that 2.7 that I placed early on was the overall. I just didn't know which direction it was coming from yet. I'm feeling like more of them are coming from this side now. This is going to be maybe I've got like a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary surface to pull from. Or I could say that these are actually coming off of this center axis as one, and then this is only the secondary. So I could almost call this as everything being all these dimensions being pulled from actually just a one control as a center axis instead of like thinking of it in X and Y. Like all of these dimensions that I've pulled over here are based in from this center point, right? And it could be an axis that I'm pulling them from, not necessarily considering the X and Y grids. Just another thought there. It's kind of confusing, but think about it as this is actually maybe just a single primary, and this is only the secondary place that I'm pulling from. Maybe I've only established two different datums to pull from, actually. Okay, that's confusing a little bit, but that size and its location is going to be off center axis here, maybe. So it could be arguable that I would kind of establish how I did over here, this 163. It's a pretty good argument that if I'm really controlling it, that I'm saying, and that is an axis control, that I might pull this dimension as Is it redundant? No, I haven't really used it over here. It's actually in this direction now, and it's my diameter based off of of an axis is what I've got going on there. That's confusing, I know, but trust me. It's kind of like I go from here to there, and then this is the diameter after that. Yeah. And then what? And then, so I've kind of sized and located this thing now, at least that outer diameter. I've got its size in both directions and maybe its location from a control here. Now I'm going to do some of its features, the holes. I think I can easily size those here. I for sure have they are based off of this bolt circle, I mean, bolt circle. So let's say I need a diameter on that. I need to call out what they're based off of. That's their location. Let's think of their size first. Sorry. Size is still diameter maybe here and four of those things. So now I'm taking care of their size. 4x. And their location is now this, based off that same center axis, essentially. And then I just need to base off of so it's based off of that from center. So I don't need a rectangular, I don't need an X and Y because I'm just coming out from center to there. But what I need is an angular dimension, then how far apart they are. So I'm kind of like this is a single like location for them. I think so. Yeah. And it's shown to be in parallel or on the sorry, they are shown to be on the center marks. So they're on the quadrants of that part, I guess. 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock. And I just need to make sure that somebody can't misinterpret that that's 90 degrees between each one. So I'm going to use an angular dimension here. And this is kind of the concept of polar locating here. And so it might be that I'm going to get a little bit tight, and then I might pull this one over to this side. I might pull this one down for clarity's sake a little bit. Okay. And then this one actually, before I move on here, this one probably should say BC on at the end, actually. So I'm going to add that to the end of this. Anytime I use I did throw that dimension in here on this assignment. I hadn't done it, I don't think, in the past. Call that out as a bolt center, but I wanted to start using that when I see this kind of dimensioning. BC. This one needs to say 4 times. This is a good place to put that because I don't know if 3A's, because it is based off of potentially, yeah, we'd have to really analyze. Are we using the center axis or are we using the center marks? Yeah, we'll come back to that in GD&T land and really dial that in. But I like that dimension. There's 4 of those around. That's their size. This is kind of their location, both of these. Is that all? No, there's these features here that I want to. So this part is actually kind of joined to that part and spans between the two. And this is the clearest place for the inner bore of that part. And obviously I have the outer bore, but maybe it would be better if the outer bore was dimensioned in its rectangular view right here. This is the outer bore. That's a size and that's a diameter. Oh, it's painful. I don't know why I'm struggling with this today. Not normal. There we go. Let's add a symbol. I'm going to pull this out a little bit further away here. This is size and that's location for the overall plate. This is one size of this little inner thing here. That's one size on its outer diameter. Sometimes people would put OD on that too. I'm just going to leave it with just the diameter. And then the inner diameter, I think, has to be a diameter. And that's the only place that it shows as a visible line. That's hidden here. It could be here, but it's overlapping with this. And where this was already carrying the counterbore stuff, I'm going to separate that and say this is actually a better place to maybe show that. And the only place. Unless I would have done some section view. If I would have sectioned it here, I could have got that in a rectangular view, but I'm not going to do that. Those are both sizes. That's size, that's size. What's its location? Well, this is where these get redundant, and you're like, well, why do I have to do this? And I'm like, well, technically, I'm going to locate it like this. Um, and I think this is what gets the most confusing. It's 0.63. This one's going to move out a little bit more, and maybe I'll keep the line in this one, and then I'm going to have this one jump out to maybe like this. So, I mean, what I'm looking at is this is size, and that's kind of location. That's size, and that's location for that part. And then we'll come back and look at accuracy because right before Nathan left, he did say something that stood out to me. Is like, well, if I'm snapping these dimensions, do I need to make sure that I don't have some inaccuracy? I know we've carried 3 decimal places here. That's the only one on the print that was really carrying 3 decimal places. Everything else was two, but there might be some places where that doesn't make sense. What I mean is, does this make sense that this is 0.125 and this is 0.63? Or if you doubled that, would that be point 0.6? What would that be like 1.26, right? So technically this dimension doesn't make sense with this one if it's centered. And so this is a good candidate where you kind of have a dimension issue with carrying the precision we're carrying, which we've had one other time before and we fixed it ourselves to keep it someone from making a mistake. And it's just because I'm only carrying 2 decimal places, so I have to be careful. Same with this, is 1.63 twice this? No, that would be actually 1 point or 3.26, right? So it would be these two dimensions would be in conflict with each other if they're supposed to be half of each other. If that makes sense. Like this one is fine carrying 2 decimal places, but this one is potentially not fine. And it wasn't given to us in like it's something as a drafter that we determined we needed. The engineer didn't give us this dimension, but it's us saying, well, I've got to locate this. So when I'm doing that and I'm adding dimensions beyond what was on this sheet, I just have to make sure they make sense, like they make logical sense, that they are half of each other, or else I'm implying that this is actually slightly a larger, it's like not, this plate is going to be off-centered. We're talking in the tenths, but that's a lot actually. So if I'm 3.26 to 3.25, that's a big difference. We're only 2/10, or I mean, sorry, it's only 100th, but that's a lot. 100th to a machinist is a mile. So I don't know literally, but I'm just in my mind, I think that's a pretty big discrepancy. So I'm going to come back and reanalyze that when I finalize my dimensions. But I think I've sized and located everything. I think this is about done. Other than I need to jump to this and decide if the three parts together have I done all the dimensioning necessary. So I'll just kind of come back and say, I know I've kind of like sized all the individual parts and then their features of size that are associated with them. But I haven't I just need to look at it maybe overall. I've got the overall length. Yeah, I don't think there's anything missing here that I would add to this particular right side view. I think nothing is jumping out at me that I'm missing, other than cleanup, of course. But yeah, I don't think I have another drawing of this that I'll pull up and just see if it shows that I've missed anything. I don't like this drawing as well. That's why I'm kind of redoing it myself. Obviously, my arrows are wrong here on this one, and I definitely have that. I've got some diameters here associated with that. I put in more dimensions, I got these ones. I've about got the same stack up here. Really not too much different in there. Here I've added those 2 inches, which are, yes, so, you know, not totally necessary unless my math is hard to do, but maybe this is fine to have put that on there too. I'm carrying a bolt circle. So I actually carried like a bolt circle here, that was for the radius features. I feel like I actually located mine better this time. Um, I think so. I think this is unnecessary and it's better over here. I'm not exactly sure what I'm calling out here for. So there's some things I don't love about the way these drawings were. Yeah, I like mine better. So and I don't see that I've missed anything that I haven't already grabbed and actually explained it even better here. Yeah, I've actually added a couple dimensions when I consider location a little when I'm like more accurately considering locating and really keeping this as a rectangular dimension style here, and this one being a polar dimension style. So I like to show this on both actually. What you can do one over the other or both too. It's just it's more of a lesson in both are correct. And I think I said before I even started, I generally prefer this method actually. Maybe it just looks cleaner to me. This gets a little bit gritty grid what I think of, but it looks good though. I mean once it's done and I see it, well, I mean looks good is like, well, it's pretty well saturated with dimensions. Yeah, it is, but it's I do like this method, so it's not that I don't like it. You may work in places where they're more critical on one or the other, but um I just need to clean these ones up. I haven't got these spaced correctly, and I'm probably going to move this down and away. And then I know I've got some pass through, but I've got to have a little pass through there. So I'll just space these out as they are. Base and the other ones. Where I'm one to one, I can definitely use the auto function on this one. Gets a little crowded though. I think I'll increase that just a little bit. It's awfully close. Maybe I'll pull this one just a little further up like that. And then I'm going to cut this one through. So I feel like I'm going to cut this one using this as the cutter here. Oh, maybe if it will. Yeah, it will, right? Let me try that again. Cut. Maybe I picked the wrong command. Cut that. Oh, yeah, that's better. Cut that extension line off that one. Yeah. Okay. I'll pull this a little further away from that other diameter one. Okay, that's cleaned up for me. I like it. Space this one. I can't remember if I spaced this or not. This one's in alignment. That's fine. Space these. It's pretty well staggered. I'll stagger it a little bit more, maybe. This one's way outside. It's okay. Oh, the joy. Good. Hey, that's pretty well cleaned up. I'll just look at how it looks in my viewport now. Oh, I didn't add one thing. I've got my cutting plane thing going on. So I need to add that in there while I'm in this viewport. So let's do that. Yeah, this is a pretty I think I would pull this through, like through these dimensions. I think. Yeah, just to clear them. I could tuck them in here a little bit and I could extend like it's argue okay, so I feel like I have a couple options here. Maybe this is a little bit sloppy and ugly. And these are all spaced accordingly, like how I would like to space them off the object. But maybe I'll break that rule a little bit and say, well, I'm gonna drag this one down and just clear where it needs to cut through, right? It only needs to cut, only to clear this right here by some distance. I can't remember if it's a specific distance off my I've done like 3/4 before, but I might only do like a 1/2 inch long. Oh, whoops, I don't want to mess it up like that, but like this distance to me, sometimes I'll do 3/4. Maybe here I'll break that rule a little bit and just do what I've got here, which is I don't know how far it is. I don't know. What is it? Let's measure just for my own sake. Distance. It's only a 1/4 inch away, but that's enough to cut through. I feel like it's just as long as I'm cutting through, I might try to make that uniform a little bit here. And not that it has to be perfect. It just visually looks pretty close. And that I'm looking to say that this is roughly about the same as I did on top, and I'm making sure that I clear through. Yeah. So that what that's going to make me do is I think I'm just going to extend these a little bit above and beyond, and I'll just get them out of my way for a minute while I can put my arrow on, and yeah, and then I'll come back and clean them up. I could have left that one down potentially, but what I want to do is insert my cutting plane arrow. There it is. It's on my list, so I'm going to insert that sucker right there, and I'll just do another one as well. I can just insert it again. Right there. Heck yes. Got my arrow ready to go. It's annotative. Should jump for me. I can see that I'm a little bit I need to pull this out a little bit. At least I'm just going to make um, there, make it look like it's about the same. And that would have clashed with that. So I could choose to just stagger that one, and this one can still stay off of the correct, and then I can space these ones off of maybe based off this one, and use that other half inch as its own. In fact, I might line it up with the second one like this, something like that. That's pretty clean. That's clean. That leaves me from overextending this thing way. Just happens to work well like this. Just I'm looking for a clean finish. Something like this will work good. It needs some notation, right? So I'm going to go to my text layer, and I may have added all those dimensions on the wrong layer. So I got to double check that. Don't do what I did, but I probably did put all these. No, no, no. Every time I'm pulling a dimension, I'm on the right layer. It's just that I probably put this on the center layer, and I think I'll just move it to the visible layer, visible object layer. Even though I created that with a visible object, I could choose to put that on any layer essentially. So I was on I wasn't watching myself and I'm on the wrong layer. So visible. I think that's the only drawing I've done on the wrong layer. I'll check these. Those should be all the same. These are all on the right layers. Yeah. Otherwise they wouldn't look right. I think all my dimensions I have it toggle on to use my dimension layer. So I shouldn't worry. Just that those one things is what I placed wrong. This is correct, right? Dimension layer. Yeah. Okay. Good, good, good. But what I'm going to use is my text layer to add anytime you do a cutting plane or an auxiliary or like a viewing plane, I should say, I'm going to label that thing. So I'm going to insert a multi-line text. 1.25 text is great. No, 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 it's not great. That's wrong. So I'm going to escape that and I'm going to go to the correct text size, which is double the size text for these notes. So there's my 0.2. And my multi-line text now with that particular text size. I'm just going to put that right here probably in close relation. Maybe it's a center justified letter A, capital A. Sorry, A. I can size this in just a little bit. Doesn't need to be, it's only a single item like that. And then I'll move it a little bit closer to the actual, can sit here, can sit to the side. I usually don't put it on the inside of the bend. I usually put it to the outside of the bend, like there or sometimes here. I think either is just totally fine as long as I have a nice clear place. There's A, and I'll just make a copy of that. I already did that, so I'll just make a copy of that item by sure the bottom corner somewhere. And I need it to say from point A to point A or to point whatever to point whatever. A is just the first in the alphabet and the first one we've done. That's why we chose A. They don't always have to be A. This one's just A because I haven't done any yet. So it's AA first. AA Ron? Is that yeah? AA Ron. Just I think sometimes students get confused. They're always A. No, no, no. It's actually just I can I sequentially just start using the alphabet, based off the first one I place and continuing. 3D programs will just kind of it will already know to go to the next letter in the alphabet for those. Uh, yeah. So here I have to keep track a little bit more myself. Make sure I don't have two A's on my print somewhere. I think the print pack. Well, I'm not going to go into that. I was going to think like if I had like a bunch and a whole set of prints, can they be the same on the same sheet? I don't think so. I think in a whole print pack I just continue to use the alphabet, but I could be wrong and it could be just sheet to sheet. But I'll double check myself on that before I say too much. I just need to identify that this is that section, right? I know I'm viewing that way from this. So whenever I would see this section pull up, no matter where it is on my print, if it did become like a removed somewhere and placed even on another sheet somewhere, section AA, I could always come back to this view and say, oh, I'm looking that way from left to right. I'm looking, even though I've pulled this as more of like a looking like I'm looking right to left, like we would like, don't mistake that I'm looking that way. Know that I'm looking left to right because my arrows tell me so. And that's how I would make sense out of that in case it was kind of a dislocated view somewhere off on another sheet. In either way, it needs to have a title. That's how I can identify it. So I'm going to pick another multi-line text using the same double size font, and it's going to be down here as a title. Sometimes these become underlined, but I'll just keep them not underlined. So this is section A dash A is how I'd read that. A dash A, and maybe I'll center justify that text. And I don't need it too much wider than that. But there is an argument that sometimes I will actually take these and underline them, which I just have that option to underline. Maybe I'll do that this one. We didn't do it on the last time we did a section, and usually, I mean, I think that's a more complete view because uh, it's pretty common that this isn't usually all that a view will carry. Sometimes there'll be a second line to this if I would go down to the second line. And then the second line and the other data that might go with this would be back to the regular text size, just so you know. Like I don't have sometimes it'll carry the like the scale, like right. I can actually take this view in that viewport and scale it differently than where the cutting plane was done. And if I do that, I need to tell the viewer that this is at a different scale. Like I would just put the scale as the scale ratio there. I'd probably write the word scale and then write the ratio of the scale there. I could also write the material, or I could write quantity, or I could actually write a little local note here even underneath it. But I would say mostly it carries the scale. And if it's been revolved or rotated in some degrees or anything like that, it's like I'm going to put those details in a note. And on the indexing stop, I think I'm going to do that when I come to an auxiliary view. I'm going to label a view and then rotate the view so that it's yeah, I think I'm going to do that just as an exercise in adding more to my headings, my title headings. But an underline is great. I think you'll see sometimes it's omitted and sometimes I like it added. I think in architecture you generally add an underline to most of your view labels. Yeah, so that's A to A. There's section AA. I did all this in the viewport, so it's all annotative. And I think I might be done other than just going back out and actually taking a look at how what I'm cutting off, and then I got to look at my viewports and say, hey, I guess pretty good. I just got to extend this a little, drag it over this way a little. This one I can tuck back in a little bit. Just make sure I'm not cutting anything off. That looks pretty good. I didn't have to move them yet at all. This one I need to open up a little bit more. Even more than that, something like that. This one looks, oh, it's cutting off over here, I see. BC, it should say. Hey, that's a pretty good look. I just gotta say that I'm done with this and ready to send this to a checker, really, but I'm gonna say sent to production. So I like to say this revision process, I took care of it. It's actually Rev 0 anyway. The date is the 14th. Oh, I'm glad hey, it's my mother-in-law's birthday. This is good to remember. I think we did a drawing on my mom's birthday. Now it's my mother-in-law's birthday. All right, I gotta call her. I gotta send her a text. Just remembered that when I typed the date in. Okay. And then this is, I just say sent to production. I'm going to start saying when I do my engineering drawings for you guys, I'm going to say those are sent to drafting and now these are sent to production. Rev 0 though, and then I'm just say the not applicable on the zone. So that's okay. Apply or hit okay. Then I'll do my title block and then the sucker is done. I feel like Bob Ross at the end here where I'm like, let's just sign this thing and we got a happy little mountain over here now. My scale's 1 to 1, so I don't have to change that. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. This is me, and the date that I did this is super critical. It's in a different format. It kind of bugs me that I did the one. It's all right though. I still keep the same. I do the dash here. So this is 1014 and a single year. That's okay. And then the title, I call it pretty much the drawing name. CAD. But I use my spacings here. And then I still do it in all caps. This is an auxiliary support. And I call these ortho, but you don't have to. That's just mine because I always have an ISO and an ortho. So that's how I separate my two. And then I don't need to change anything. The sheet. Oh yeah, this is where I was telling you guys I sent you guys we had, I'll show you this right here, but we kind of had this debate on the quiz and I agree with all of you. I like the way that it makes most common sense, which is like every sheet almost I feel like should carry how many of the sheets are in the whole print pack and what sheet number I'm on. And that's kind of how this title block has been built. And I'm not the one that built this title block, but I do agree with this is how I was used to using that. This may be a sheet. Let's say this is actually sheet 5. Sorry, I'll put it right here. Like maybe this ends up being like sheet 5 in a total number sheets of 25 sheets. And if I apply this, this is how that would read out in the title block. Let me go back in here if it will let me. 5 of 25. This is how I'm used to, and most people on the forums agree that this is the easiest to identify sheets that need revisions or where revisions took place. And the other way is confusing to most people. However, ASME allows for both types of formatting and their revision. They have a whole code book on revision control, and it actually addresses both ways. So to me, that one, I just want you to remember that the sheet likes that 1 of 1 or 2/2 is the correct answer. And it is a correct answer, but I feel like in that question, you actually could have two of the correct answers because I think A and C were kind of both different formats. And I like this best. But anyway, I just wanted to show you that even this title block is kind of formatted the way I like to do it. And I wasn't the one that did this, so but this is actually just sheet 1 of 1. Apply. Okay. And I just wanted to show you that this is in my sheet block area of my title block. I do have some, yep. We haven't had any multiple sheets yet at all, but this is good. I like this. Yep. If your dimensions are being a little bit weird, you maybe have to unlock and flex them, right? I call this flexing when I like unlock them and I might change the scale. Make sure everything is annotative. That's kind of a helpful thing to make sure you didn't do things, put your dimensions on in the wrong, uh, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, you put them in model space instead of paper space. But yeah, this is done. Signed, sealed, and delivered. I'm going to end this one as part 2. Call this good. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh, I'm actually just going to fix line type scale. I think that's the last thing. Usually I see that at the end, so I will adjust that one more thing. I'm going to turn off this construction layer. I don't need it. Usually I notice that once I do like a control P and I like do my PDF preview. This is usually when line type scales jump out at me. Like I like it. I actually like how my hidden lines are looking. They look really good. I don't feel like I'm going to do an adjustment on my line types for hidden lines. It's the center lines I don't love. I don't like these at all. They're all just too coarse. So I'll refine them just a little bit. So hey, this is a good drawing though. This one should go in a portfolio, I would think. Especially if you did both coordinates, because you could be on the job, you'd be like, yeah, we learned or rectangular coordinate, and we learned polar coordinate dimensioning. So that's cool. Yeah. Or if you did both, whatever. But long story short is I need to change how coarse this is by Pavsies. Oh, that's beautiful, I think. I could argue that I could go a little bit more. Maybe that's even better. Yeah, I'm going to match those properties. That to the main center mark as well, to these ones down here, to this. I'm really not calling that out there. I do argue that I think I'm going to delete this. I don't think it's just I used rectangular coordinates here. That polar coordinate there just kind of gets confusing, or that polar center line. I carry that over here and actually call it out. So I'm just going to remove it from that view. I didn't notice that till I really got in here. And I'm just going to make sure that I pulled. See that one I can tell I didn't pull I call this out a lot on a lot of people's prints, so they didn't pull those back to the object edge. Those leader lines, that one too. Yeah, those will always get you because I can usually don't see the center line. I could just see that I wasn't seeing the center line break up. I'm not going to break that out. I'm going to let that cross. That's okay. It's usually just the extension and center line or extension and dimension line relationship that I break. In fact, that might not even let me break that center line anyway. So over here, we got to do some refinement of these center lines as well. I'm going to match those properties, but I can't do that from view to view. It's kind of strange. So I think I'll just do it here and then 0.25 is what I ended up liking. And I'll match them from here. I could have gone just within the viewport and then handled all these separately too, but or all in the model space kind of. So that looks pretty good. Those are all captured plus the center one. These ones should overlap because I got to pull over to that object. Like I wouldn't pull this one back because it needs to reach out and show where I'm. Oh, sorry, I just messed up my scale. Let me undo that. Lock that thing down. This one's probably unlocked too. Nope, it's not. This is yeah, that needs to reach out over to that object edge like that. So I like how that extends over on this one as well, extending over to that across. Um, and then just to fix up on this one single. Oh no, I've got two here though. Yeah. Let's see here. 0.25 is what I'm going with. I'll match those to this. Excellent. Wait, that one didn't quite take. Let me do it. Hey, that looks good. I think, and this is locked down. Yep. Okay, okay, okay. I'm gonna save this. Save, 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 save. I'm gonna PDF that thing, and this thing's over. Control P. Take one last preview of my finished work. Yeah, if actually I won't save it. So this, yeah, that looks good. That shows the pop of how heavy that plane line is, that cutting plane line. I actually, if it's going to be in my, if I'm going to PDF this thing for my portfolio, those are not going to be colored prints. So I wouldn't want my portfolio to be colored. That's for us and like keeping track of line types. And the easy way, like to save that is just to all you have to do is your the plot settings or the page setup has already been established for color, but I can quickly just do a spot change to monochrome, and then I'll preview that. And this is actually how I want my print to look. And actually, it'll plot like this, and all those object lines will pop like that. Actually, that's what my finished drawing is going to look like. Looks pretty sweet. That's portfolio worthy for semester one. Yeah, done deal. So that's a long series.